Back at you guys again with the Corrado saga. Dun, 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 dun. Masmeri here, Vic himself. So today what we're going to be doing is a drive belt and a tensioner pulley thingamabobber right there. There's the part number for your tensioner assembly, and I believe this is the part number for the belt. There's some of the info. Couple tools we're gonna need: ratchet, your sockets 14, 13, 10, and the 8mm. We also used a flathead and an extension as well for, we don't have it here, but for the ratchet set there with the sockets. Drive belt change on the Volkswagen. Is this thing VR6?
VR6 2.8 liter.
Alright, so one thing that I'm going to mention before we do this is the air cleaner. We have an aftermarket intake here, so what you're going to want to do in this area, there's going to be an air box for all you guys that are running stock still. You're going to want to take everything out. It's pretty straightforward. Just unscrew the shit out of stuff and don't lose everything. But since we have our air cleaner here, or filter, we have easy access to our tensioner.
Okay, to take up the slack in your belt, you're going to need a bolt, an M8. The manual recommends 80mm. Ours is 45, but it works. So you thread it into this hole here on the tensioner. And you're supposed to just thread it in just enough so that it starts taking up the slack and you can remove the belt. If you thread it in too much, you can damage the tensioner.
We're also going to be changing the tensioner too on this thing, but right now we're just showing you guys how to loosen the belt. Keep in mind that we have no air box in this thing, so it's a lot easier for us to do.
So as I'm tightening this, you're going to see the pulley move in, and the belt's going to start to loosen up.
Alright, so we've slid the belt off. What we're going to do is try to get at it from underneath, because we really don't have enough room to slide it out. Alright, so plan B, we've got the belt off. We're just going to try to get at it from underneath the car or the wheel well there. Belt's off, we pushed it down. So now we're just going to have to slide off. What is it, off the crank pulley?
Yeah, I think
So what we're going to do now is take off the guard there to the lower pulleys, just so we can easily access the belt and slide it on and get it back on. Slide it off, get it back on. 10mm, that bolt we just took off, our nut.
this one up here is a meat.
There's one, it's kind of hard to see, but it's right in there. And then there's a clip there. And that should be it, right? Clip. And then that guy right there, which we were just taking out. So that clip there just slides out right there. Okay, so another part of the tools, what you're going to want to is you can either get it online, or I would recommend buying manuals because I've had experience with just downloading them. Some of them are shit, they're photocopied, but anyways, This is our manual that we're using. And I'm just going to show you guys quickly the belt orientation. That's how it's going to go back on. I'm just going to show you guys quickly in case you don't have a manual. You can just pause this and read it.
No. Okay, the reason why we're changing this pulley is because the bearings are worn. If you listen, you hear the bearings grind. When the car runs, it's a lot more noisy. If you listen to the new pulley, you shouldn't hear any noise. And you can tell there's grease in here because it doesn't spin as easy. So you got a few options. You could just replace this pulley. You unbolt this and get a new pulley. You could even do the bearing in there. You can cut the bearing out and put in a new bearing, but we just got the whole assembly. So these 13mm bolts.
Alright, all 3 bolts are out. There's your old tensioner.
With these bolts, just put a little bit of anti-seize. You don't need much, just put a little bit.
Alright, so what we've done is we've just inspected all of our pulleys, make sure none of the grooves on the pulleys are damaged, full of debris. What we did was we blew out all the dirt and everything out of our pulleys and around it. That way our belt grips nice and we don't have any issues like slipping pulleys or whatever. But the tensioner should fix it up. Now we've got our new tensioner in. He's just putting his 3 bolts in. Keep in mind too, you should always clean up the threads. Put some anti-seize so if you ever have to service later on in the car's life, it won't be so hard. Everything's tightened up on our tensioner. There's our 3 bolts. Now what you guys are going to want to do is torque everything down with your wrench.
Okay, so when you come down to the end of it, be careful. This is aluminum, you can crack it easy. So you just want to snug up all these bolts. Try and do as even as you can. If you can get the feel for it, you don't really need to torque it. If you're not comfortable with it, grab a torque wrench, find out the torque specs. Put your M8 bolt back into that hole there to release the tension. So once you get it snug by hand, just start doing it with your ratchet. You can see the pulley starting to move in. And just keep in mind, you only want to do this just enough so that you can take the belt off and put it back on. Okay, so with this belt here, you notice that it's got grooves on each side. That's because we got AC. If your car doesn't have AC, one side will be smooth. So just keep that in mind when you're buying your belt.
Just finishing up, we've fed the belt on the top and around our pulleys properly. Now if it's fitting on tight, you might have to take some tension off of her, but we almost got her, it looks like.
Yeah, I think we might have to.
Fitting it around our last couple pulleys. If not, we'll show you how to loosen it. But yeah, that's all you pretty much have to do is just get it back on the same way you took it off and then tension it back up again. Our belt is a little bit tight at the bottom, so what we're gonna do is spin the adjustment on the tensioner clockwise. That's gonna loosen up and bring the pulley in. Loosen up the belt, bring the pulley in, give us a little bit more slack. You may even have to push the belt through. Like, I'll show you what I mean in just a second. If there's not enough slack, you might have to push it, feed the belt in more. But you should be alright once you loosen up that tensioner. Now, we've loosened the tensioner a bit more, and as you can see, our belt slid over our pulley. It's on there now. Just make note of how you, like I said, took it off, feed it back in there, as you can see. So everything's in there good. We're going basically around these two pulleys on the outside, and then on the two here, you're going to go on the inside of them. And then as you go to the top two pulleys on the outside of the top too, the belt's going to feed around. And that's it. Just have to tension it up. Now, what's this bolt you're using again?
It's an M8 bolt, and the one that I'm using is 45 millimeters long. The manual says 80, but 45 will be good enough.
So yeah, M8 bolt, 45 millimeters long, but yeah, it's good enough.
Alright, so make sure that the belt's on before you release the tension. Once you're sure about that, start releasing your tension. And just check as you're doing it, make sure nothing slips out of place. And everything is where it should be. That's it.
So all you have to do is loosen it all the way, right? And then a tension, that's it?
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. And maybe next week we'll bring you this guy starting. Just start it, make sure you don't hear any squeaks. Make sure everything's good, the belt doesn't come off. And enjoy your ride.
4 hours though, just the other 12 hours.
Alright, so